Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. It's great to have you all here. My name's Lucas. I am a Director of Product here at Paddle, working on the invoicing solution. And I'm really excited to be here today to talk to you all about sales-assisted billing and some of the work that we've been doing here at Paddle in order to facilitate sales-assisted billing. I have the great pleasure of being joined by Alex, who is an account executive and resident sales assisted expert here at Paddle. Welcome, Alex.
Thanks, Lucas. Good to be here.
And I'm also joined by Dimitri here, who works in financial management and operations at a fantastic company called Applied. Thank you for joining us, Dimitri. Very good to have you here as well.
Well, it's my pleasure. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you both. Really looking forward to hearing from Dimitri and Alex in a little bit. And today what we're going to do is we're going to discuss some of the challenges of sales-assisted billing, very much in the context of high-growth software companies. And what we're going to do is identify some of those trends and challenges that we're seeing out in the market. So hopefully, if we do our jobs right, at the end of today, you'll have a really good understanding of some of the challenges and gotchas, I guess, when building a sales-assisted billing motion, and how also, I guess, how Paddle's new invoicing solution can support some of those ambitious growth plans that you might have. Especially if you are looking to layer a sales-led growth motion on top of a product-led growth motion, which is something that we're seeing a lot in the market at the moment. So in terms of an agenda, I will be kicking us off with some of those challenges with the sales-assisted billing, talking you through some of the things that we've seen and learned out in the market. We're then going to hear from Alex and Dimitri, who are going to talk through some of Dimitri's experience with Applied. Really looking forward to that. And then we're going to give you a bit more information about the early access program that we're launching here at Paddle with our new invoicing solution. And we're going to wrap up today with some Q&A. Just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. We're really looking forward to learning more about your business and those sales-assisted billing needs that you might have today. So please do help us with this by participating in the polls that will appear over the course of the webinar. And if you have any questions as we go, please feel free to ask them in the Q&A widget next to the chat. We do have a team behind that Q&A who will do their best to answer your questions. And we have also reserved a little bit of time at the end where myself, Alex, and Dimitri can address them as well. But let's get into it. So starting off, if you think, and I know this has been spoken a lot about in the SaaS world recently, and I think a lot of us would agree in this room that product-led growth is very trendy. It's something that a lot of people are talking about. But what perhaps is even trendier in many ways is what we call here at Paddle a hybrid approach to billing. And we're seeing this all over the SaaS world. And this is effectively where you start off and you achieve critical mass via a product-led growth function. But then what you do is you layer on a high-performing sales team that allows you to drive your average contract value to higher points, and also just simply reach orders of magnitude that you were perhaps otherwise unable to achieve or reach with a pure product-led growth motion. And what we're seeing out in the market is that many software companies are being pulled up market, and sometimes they're getting pulled up market even without an intentional strategy to do so. Sometimes your customers grow, their requirements evolve, and you need to build an enterprise version of your product. Sometimes you choose to do this for strategic reasons. It can also happen when you acquire enough customers from different corners of an organization to create a lot of momentum for that bottom-up expansion and using a sales team to drive that. And what you can see here on this diagram is that the software industry is full of success stories about small SaaS companies that have graduated from an exclusively product-led growth strategy to a sales-led or sales-led growth motion. Their customer base then shifts from individual users and small teams to larger businesses. And as I said before, it enables them to achieve orders of magnitude and success that they were otherwise unable to achieve. And you can see some fantastic examples on this diagram here. But over the past year or so, we here at Paddle have spoken to more than 100 companies to really try and understand the challenges that they face when they move up market and when they target these larger businesses. And also to really drive our strategy around how Paddle might help both our current customer base and our future customers overcome them. And through that process, we have identified 4 key challenges here that you can see on this screen. The first one is the manual nature of reconciliation and how challenging this gets as you start to send many, many invoices and accept many, many wire transfers. Also, this idea of managing and maintaining a single source of truth and how that can improve decision-making across your business. Third, the fact that invoicing typically is a very manual process. Sales-assisted billing requires a lot of people touch points and work across both financial and sales ops. And then lastly, managing global tax compliance. So how do you send compliant invoices and manage tax compliance internationally? And we're going to dive into a few of the specifics for each of these just now. So as you know, reconciliation is a time-consuming process. It grows more complex as the number of invoices increases, as the number of bank transfers increases, more bank accounts, more currencies. This is very typical when a SaaS company grows. And this time-consuming process, based on what we've seen, and I think Dimitri is going to touch on this a bit later, is usually handled by an individual or a team of people at a company who are tasked with marking all of these payments and invoices as paid. And I'm sure many of you in the audience will be familiar with the process of bringing a bank statement up on one screen, invoices on another screen, and having to go through and match each of these reference numbers to ensure that invoices are marked as paid. And for most sellers that we've spoken to, this is a fully manual and very time-consuming process. And what they're looking for is a solution that can help them save time chasing, tracking, and reconciling all of these manual payments. We also have this idea of maintaining a single source of revenue truth. And this is something that really resonated with a lot of the SaaS companies that we spoke to. They said that they demanded a system that they can trust. They want accurate revenue data that they can report on with confidence, a single system that takes care of all of that necessary banking infrastructure and facilitates those payments across multiple channels. And this is even more so the case for hybrid sellers, where they're trying to maintain data across both self-serve billing motions as well as sales-assisted billing motions. And getting this right can mean that you have a far greater visibility over your business and improve your decision-making. Thirdly, we also know that a lot of this sales-assisted billing process, as I mentioned before, is manual and it doesn't scale. Invoicing, however, is the go-to way for billing businesses, and it has been for decades, but this process is antiquated. It's very manual, and often what we've heard is that it just doesn't fit with the world of fast-growth SaaS. And what we're talking about here is things like order approvals, price negotiations, sending out tax compliant invoices, chasing invoices, and then of course, financial reporting as well, including reconciliation. This process shouldn't be manual, and we're hoping to be able to solve that as well to provide a seamless payment experience. And lastly, talking through global tax compliance. So with software, what's fantastic about software is that we can target a global market, but of course, this does raise issues of selling into these different tax jurisdictions or billing in multiple currencies. And what we want to provide and what companies are looking for out there is a solution that can ensure all B2B payments are totally compliant from day one and that they can run a sales-assisted motion globally from day one. So they're the 4 challenges that we've seen. I'm going to move on now and hand over to Alex and Dimitri, who are going to have a quick 15-minute fireside chat just to give you a bit more clarity over how this has played out in the real world. And I'm really looking forward to hearing a bit more about the experience that Dimitri has had with Applied. So over to you, Alex.
Thanks, Lucas. Cheers. And Dimitri, great again to have you here once more. Really looking forward to kind of getting in some of those weeds of the challenges that you've faced when trying to manage that end-to-end sales billing process. I guess diving right in, we've kind of been speaking for quite some time now, right? And I guess back from when we were in, initial product discovery mode. And as Lucas has already kind of walked through, there's tons and tons of kind of complex issues that come with sales-assisted billing, which is often kind of plugged in with manual processes that really interestingly you're now looking to automate. It'd be great to kind of kick things off and kind of understand why now, what's been the trigger for looking to address these kind of things.
Yeah, I mean, number one, thanks for being my agony aunt and letting me cry on the live platform about the pain that I'm going through and how you're trying to help me solve it. But simply put, most of the pain has originated just from the fact that we're scaling. It's one thing to keep it simple and small. And for example, when I started, it was around 20 to 30 customers. You're sending 3-4 invoices out a month. And now we've gotten to the point where we're over 300 and you're having to not only deal with a bigger volume, but far more complex sales. As we just described a second ago, it's not just about, I'm doing more sales in my home territory, it's also internationally. As you expand internationally, there's more bespoke packages that come into play, more regulations. So it becomes quite mind-boggling and painful just to kind of keep up with it, especially if you're a small team that's quite spread across the whole business, trying to do too many things, as is the case with all of us, right? You know,
Sure.
None of us can easily say, oh, I've done my job in 6 hours and I twiddle my thumbs for the next 2 hours of the day. There's always something burning and screaming for your attention. So it's really trying to, as part of that scaling and that scale and complexity problem, try to prioritize your energy and efforts on the things that you should be, rather than trying to spread your attention across everything equally. It's managed by expectation rather than the norm. That's what's really been driving it.
Interesting. And do you have a kind of framework for prioritizing which sort of efforts you want to focus on?
Well, you could almost say, blatantly, it comes down to materiality is almost always the simplest answer at the end of the day. As a growing company, as a scale up, you got to make sure you're managing your runway as much as possible and managing that expectation. So if you're stuck with your back against the wall, that's almost always the short answer. But there is a far more broader evolving framework that's coming off the back of it, where the whole pain versus effort kind of equation and ROI on your side. Real world example, literally this morning I sat and did for 5 hours a vendor setup form for one of our new customers that was for a contract that was no more than £3,000. So you're kind of sitting there going, this is the type of stuff that I shouldn't be doing as the norm, and this should be quite run of the mill and taken care of for me. But we're evolving, we're getting there.
It's a process. I mean, you touched on some of the complexities of especially moving, international, amongst other couple of things of these heavily manual processes. What were kind of like the key things that were really keeping you up at night? It kind of seems like you're in a better state now, but if you can reflect back on some of our therapy sessions maybe last year.
Gosh, quite a few things. So I'm not going to take up the whole call today. If I had to oversimplify, it's making sure that you are keeping the business out of risk as much as possible. And what that means is, one, ensuring that you are invoicing on time, correctly, completely, in a manner that will get cash in as quickly and as simply as possible with as least effort as possible from your end. But also, as you're growing, are you doing it in a way that means the admin burden, the overhead that comes with managing this growth is kept to a minimum, especially as you grow internationally. So as the fourth point was in the previous slide, one of the biggest pains for myself and one of my nightmares that is recurring but slowly, steadily ebbing away is as we grow, into the US, for example, now. I think it was yourselves that actually made me aware of the fact that there's over 10,000 tax jurisdictions in the US. It's not just like in the UK where it's simple, there's one system, life's easy, done. It's, hold on, there's the national level, the federal level, the state level, and depending whether you B2C, B2B, it's horrendous. So for a small team that's already quite thinly stretched, getting tech to do most of that heavy lifting for you is invaluable.
And I know that's always been a philosophy that you've had, right? Trying to throw technology and try and automate as much as possible to create that efficiency. So yeah, that's super interesting to know. And I know you guys are obviously a super fast growing company, as you said, 30 customers when you joined, now 300, who knows what's going to be in a year's time. What do you think needs to happen for you to get to a point where you're then confident that your sales assisted billing motion is going to scale, I guess, kind of at the stage it is now, but also in years to come?
Yeah, I mean, if I had to give you a short and comical answer, it's almost like that I could go away on holiday and not come back to the world being on fire. But more broadly than that, it's more about if I almost had to borrow the words, I think it's Tim Ferriss who laid out this framework where he said, in any process, what you ideally should try to aim to do is, number one, remove anything that's completely unnecessary from the process. If you can't remove it, can you simplify it? That's number two. Number three is, once you've simplified it, can you remove the manual effort from it, i.e. the person involved in it, and automate it? And even beyond that, number four, what can you outsource? And sometimes 3 and 4 is one of the same things, especially in the world of tech now. And that's kind of where we're going, is we've already kind of like squeezed the lemon cup as much as we can, gotten every drop out of it in terms of elimination and simplification. We're at the next stage of evolution where automation needs to come in and help ease the transition. And by that, I mean, in today's world, you can't simply continue using very old traditional methods by throwing more bodies at the problem. Just hire more people, and scale the process through hiring more. That's not necessarily the smartest and or cost efficient way to do it. The ROI, and that's not always fantastic. So there's often a combination of it. As I mentioned earlier on, you want to be spending your effort and your time more on managing the exceptions rather than the standard business practices. And maybe that's where you, let's say, scale your people function. But for the rest of it, that's where tech comes in. So that's to answer your question more finitely, that's what needs to happen, is getting that balance right between having the right amount of people with the right knowledge in who will do the exceptional stuff, work on the really weird stuff, and let business as usual be taking care of other processes where you're not manually involved, you're not making mistakes as a human being, let it happen. At the end of the month, you're just going to go click, click, couple of buttons, done.
Yeah, exactly. And is there a savvy way of trying to understand that, your small team that you have working alongside you is currently almost not being put to best use because of those manual processes? Any good employee wants to kind of say to their boss, yeah, everything's great, right, but is kind of working behind after work or at weekends to try and solve that. How do you try and get a good understanding there?
Well, I'll be blunt and say I'm one of the laziest people you probably meet. If I can do a task one time properly and get it out of my hair, I'm done with that. So that's my preferred modus operandi, right? And that applies to almost everything. But yeah, there's going to be times where your capacity is far outstripped by any kind of work that's required. I mean, that's just, I think, a standard day for any one of us. But especially in the context of scaling, that becomes hyper painful, like I said, not only because of the volume of the invoicing, but the complexity that comes with it. And ultimately, I suppose it's viewing it through the following context, is that any finance function in a business shouldn't be, its primary focus should not be trying to prevent the business and or the CEO or protecting it from any traps, as it were, and stopping it from like any risks materializing. It should rather be trying to focus its efforts on pushing half open doors for them. So if you're spending all your day doing the far more basic operational stuff day in, day out, like just raising invoices and chasing their payments and trying to reconcile them, you're doing the risk aversion side of the business, right? You need to be creating capacity so that you can enable the business in other ways, helping to push open those half open doors. That's what you want to be prioritizing. That's where you should be spending more time. So a more tangible example of how that's materializing for us, but through the automations and a lot of the simplifications that we've done, we've moved considerably away from just, a finance or accounting role, almost entirely being a bookkeeper type role where you're just doing some transactional stuff. Down now, we're becoming more of an advisor and a consultant, whereby we're actually kind of helping the business through proper management reporting and decision facilitation. That's where you want to be spending the energy, because that's what's going to actually change the game for you, rather than, did I get these 40 invoices out today? Who actually paid me? Who do I need to chase? So that's where you want to be focusing your effort, in my opinion.
Yeah. And it's kind of not why you get into the finance world, right? To be doing that sort of bookkeeping stuff. Super interesting. I guess kind of time for one more question. I mean, it's obvious that scaling your financial operations can clearly have a massive impact on the company, as you kind of walked through already. what do you expect to achieve from having more of an automated kind of sales assisted journey? Like, what's the dream state of what the finance team at Applied is up to?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to part of what I said in the previous answer, that by automating, you're not only doing more with less, which everybody wants to do, right? It's the reality of the world that we live in, but it also helps you have less on your plate to prioritize. So right now, if I look at my to-do list on Trello, I probably have in excess of like 4,000 tickets that are just sitting there screaming for my attention. I'd rather know that I'm going to be spending my time on the 100 that are going to really support our strategic goals, rather than just our day-to-day operational concerns of, oh no, will we have enough money at the end of the day to do X? So that's really what it's about. You want to try and alleviate as much of that stress of being in survival mode and fight and flight mode into the more kind of, let's just call it what it is, strategic longer term view of we're here, we need to be there. What are the activities and efforts that we need to put in as a business to achieve that? So if you're focusing all your time on operational stuff, you've got very little time to do that stuff. And that's what the ultimate goal is for me. That's what we are trying to get right and actually achieving, which is the great news.
Yeah, kind of going from survival mode to thriving mode, right? And yeah. I'm sure lots of tech and product folks, if they are in the audience, kind of understand that, going from fighting fires to actually be able to think about what's coming a year or so down the line and being more strategic. Yeah, fascinating. Dimitri, I could speak all day, but I think we're kind of coming to an end here. But I guess we can kind of also maybe share your LinkedIn or whatever if someone wants to get in touch and ask any more questions. But the paddle team are also happy to take on any of those as well. Lucas, back over to you. Thanks again, Dimitri.
Oh, my pleasure.
I'm back in the room. Thank you very much, Alex, and thank you, Dimitri. That was really interesting to hear about the situation at Applied, and it sounds like there's a lot of value add in trying to achieve some of that automation across that sales-assisted billing process. And thank you for sharing those insights. It's really fascinating to see. And the best of luck with it, Dimitri. And we look forward to seeing how that goes with you over the coming months and years. And it sounds like you're really on a good track to turn the financial ops at Applied into a really streamlined and automated, efficient organization. So thank you very much, both of you, for that. And before we wrap up and dive into questions, we wanted to firstly introduce the new invoicing solution that we have designed at Paddle. So as I mentioned before, this has been a long time coming for us. Invoicing has become a renewed area investment for us over the last year or so. And today what we're going to do is share what some of that means for you, and give you an option for how you can access and join in on the early access. Nice. Well done, Leanne. She's just changed the slide at the perfect time. Thank you very much for that. So I'm very happy to announce that the registrations for our early access program are now open. And what I wanted to do here is just really share what our goal and mandate and mission is as a team here. What we want to do is build a robust and flexible invoicing tool that really is designed to facilitate and support that entire end-to-end sales-assisted billing process. And I make a specific point about this because what we're doing here is not about generating a PDF. I mean, that's a very important part of it. We need to get the invoice from the seller to the buyer in some way, but we want this to really be the core pillar through which the entire sales-assisted billing function and process can run. And we're obsessed with these problems like automation, problems like manual processes for which the solution is automation. And we're obsessed with solving for reconciliation. And one thing we're even more obsessed with than perhaps anything is providing a tool in which you can run a really efficient and effective sales-assisted billing motion alongside a self-serve one as well. And I'm really excited that we're on a journey to do this. It's a really big focus area for us, and we'd love to have you join our early access program and play a really crucial role in shaping that product and how it becomes hopefully the cornerstone of how SaaS companies sell via sales-assisted billing motions in the future. Next slide, please, Leanne, if you can jump to it there. So to see here, as I've sort of mentioned already, what we're keen to do is simplify those B2B sales with Paddle. We hope that we can do that for you. The first thing there is to provide an invoicing tool that is scalable, that enables you to scalably create and deliver those invoices, and try and reduce those human touch points along that process, both starting on the sales side of things, so very much being able to automate the delivery of invoices out of a CRM, and then also supporting financial ops across invoice management, reconciliation, and reporting as well, because we just know how much time, as Dimitri alluded to in the fireside chat there, we know how much time we can save in doing so. And the same goes there for reconciliation, right? Like, as Dimitri pointed out again, there are platforms out there that definitely help with reconciliation, but we want to support you with a solution that can effectively scale that reconciliation process entirely. And under our merchant of record model here at Paddle, we're really well positioned to do that. The third one there is maintaining that single source of reliable and real-time revenue truth. This is something that we've heard time and time again. It wasn't something that I gave a lot of thought to personally in my previous life in SaaS before Paddle. But having spoken to so many SaaS companies over the last year, this concept of a single source of truth is something that is absolutely vital to the success of a business. And it's something that we've seen time and time again is incredibly difficult to maintain as you scale, as you facilitate both self-serve and sales-assisted billing motions, as you launch new currencies in new markets and open new bank accounts. Being able to have all of that truth in a real-time manner, in a reliable place, in a place that you can trust is really challenging. And by incorporating all of this functionality under the hood of Paddle, I guess, in the entire Paddle ecosystem and our Paddle platform, we hope to be able to make it really easy for you to maintain that source of truth and improve your decision-making and visibility over your business. And the last one there is supporting on compliance. And I think this is probably pretty well known to this audience here that Paddle is a merchant of record. And one thing that we do provide is the removal of all of that compliance burden. This is relatively uncharted territory in the sales-assisted world. And this is a really, really big focus for us. So being able to do both self-serve and sales-assisted billing motions under that MOR model and being able to gain all of those compliance advantages that we do provide for your invoicing as well is something that we're keen to do. So they're definitely the pillars of the tool that we hope and you can expect to see if you do join the early access program. So who's eligible? Well, software companies with the hybrid go-to-market strategy, we're really interested in working with you. So those who have both self-serve and invoicing volume. As we saw on that diagram that I showed right back at the start of the call, this is very, very much becoming something that is, I guess a North Star for SaaS companies to be able to achieve the level of growth of some of those SaaS superstars that you saw there, means that a hybrid approach is really, really important to adopt, but it's not always the most important thing to adopt. Sometimes the nature of the product is such that it makes sense to run a purely sales-assisted motion and support B2E, so invoice-only companies there. And we're really keen for you to be part of this early access program too. There's a link there that you can see. Jump on that link, fill out a few details, and you'll be able to gain access to the product very, very shortly. It will go through our invoicing team here, so we will get in touch with you and have a conversation with you before you do get access, but really looking forward to hearing from as many of you as possible through that there. Leanne, next slide, please. I think we're ready for Q&A. Now, bear with me while I just get back up to speed with all the questions, given I've been talking into the screen for a bit. I'm going to try and focus on some of those questions which are perhaps haven't been answered yet by our wonderful team of moderators in the background. There's a few questions that I've seen pop up around the validation of sales tax codes or sales tax, but prior to sending out the invoice. We are aware that this is a problem in our current invoicing tool, and it is something that is on the roadmap to change relatively soon. We're aware that it is a deficiency, but of course it is something that we are going to change, and we've heard that time and time again. So I think I've seen 2 or 3 questions about that. Rest assured, some improvements in that space are coming. I'm definitely not going to be able to get to all of these questions. I'll just answer maybe a couple more, but please do note that we will follow up with answers to these questions again shortly. some stuff around recurring invoices. Yes, this is all coming soon. We will be launching recurring invoices, but of course, it's really important for us to also point out that we are API first. So you can pretty much perform all actions that you would see in the UI also via API. So we're really trying to build the tool with scalability in mind. And a lot of that comes from this requirement of being able to call an API directly out of a CRM and maintain data consistency across those two platforms. And of course, we do provide a wide array of webhooks as well, which is a really core part of us trying to maintain and support you with your single source of truth. I'm just having a little look at some more of the questions. A couple of questions around quote to invoice. This is a really interesting conversation that we've been having a lot internally at Paddle around quoting and CPQ. One thing that we've seen out in the market, which was perhaps a little bit unexpected, is that what there is great demand for is an integration between an invoicing tool and a quoting tool that typically lives in a CRM. We've seen a lot of SaaS companies out there who are quoting through Salesforce CPQ, and we are prioritizing integrations with those CRMs and quoting tools as an initial priority. I think there is a world in which a native solution exists, but it's not something that we're focusing on right now. So perhaps if you are using a CRM and doing any of that quotation or customer management inside that CRM, you can drop that in and provide some feedback on that, and we can have a look at it. But yeah, in terms of quoting, our focus is very much on integrations with CRMs and being able to facilitate quoting that way. I can see a number of pains here around custom billing. That is definitely something that we're looking at. Again, accepting tax exemption statuses and certificates prior to invoice creation. This is also something that we're looking at. We're 2 minutes over time now, so I'm probably going to leave it there, but our wonderful team of moderators will be collating all of the questions in the background, and we will get back to you to ensure that we have answered them. Please jump on that link that we shared before, visit paddle.com, and you'll be able to find your way to the early access program registration page. Really happy to be sharing all of that with you today. We look forward to hearing from you soon, and more than anything, we look forward to be hopefully working with you soon. Another big thanks to Dimitri from Applied for joining us today, and thanks to you, of course, Alex. Really appreciate your input and really interesting to hear more about the work you're doing at Applied. We'll call it there. Thanks very much. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll speak to you soon.